So the other day I saw a video about sex robots, and more accurately I saw a title to a video about sex robots. I didn't actually watch the video. And it got me thinking, you know, I've never actually made a video where I talk about sex robots. Yeah, so I may as well make one. So, what are sex robots? And I believe the name kind of answers itself. It's a robot shaped like a human. I would imagine they would feel pretty similar to a human as well, that you have sex with. Now, I don't really think these things are in massive production yet, where a bunch of people can purchase them. I really don't think they are. But I know they are currently in development. And I know they look really friggin' creepy. They look strange, to say the least. Now, one thing that I find particularly interesting about the topic of sex robots is how there are a lot of people of the male variety who are excited for this innovation, and they believe that it will be great for mankind, for men in particular. I've noticed there's not very many women who speak fondly of sex robots. In fact, the interesting thing about it all is, it seems that sex robots are almost always kind of viewed as antagonistic towards women by both the men who want the sex robots and by the women who don't want the sex robots, which is strange to me. It's actually not really strange. It's actually pretty telling about the human condition when it comes to the relationship between men and women when it comes to sex and sexuality. That being, if you haven't figured it out yet, is how sex for men is relatively difficult to obtain. Sex for women is so easy. They get so many offers that honestly, someone would misconstrue people just being nice for offers of dick. You know, so just two completely opposite and extreme views at the end. Of course, obviously, there's some middle ground in between there, where there are some women who aren't very attractive, who, you know, probably don't get 175 offers for dick every day, but I think you guys get the basic principle. The thing that I find interesting about sex dolls, though, or sex robots, is that it is primarily framed in the way for men to, you know, use these machines and get off. These robots will, usually I've always seen, are all women. I have yet to see a male sex robot in production, though I'm pretty sure there would be one. But the thing that's really interesting about it all, which was really telling though, as to why there really wouldn't be one, or why there probably isn't one, I don't think, is because, again, for women, relatively speaking, I don't really think that there would be much of a need for a male robot when you as a woman can just go outside, you know what I mean? That's probably why I don't see very often. And I think that's kind of really the biggest issue, the biggest problem when it comes to sex robots. And I say biggest, I mean there's numerous issues with them. But I think one of the biggest ones though is how it's not really a solution to the problem of sex. I guess you can call it the problem of sex. And that is how men want to have sex with women and women want to have sex with men. But due to their hypergamous nature and the fact that they think that they're better than most men, they won't have sex with a lot of these men, so these men feel a lot of lonely, and they feel isolated, and they don't know what to do, so they fall back on these sex robots, or they hope and pray that these sex robots will give them the pleasure that they want. But the thing that's really interesting to me that I find peculiar is that, one, if you are looking forward to these robots to give you pleasure, well, there's lots of other things you can do to get pleasure, and there's lots of other things you can do beyond sexual pleasure. I mean, you can read a book, but I guess a lot of people don't like reading, I guess so. Yeah. But I mean, there's other things you can do. I mean, even apart from like video games or working or yard work or just taking a drive, I mean, I just don't really find it much of a justification to spend potentially thousands of dollars on these robots just to feel good for, well, 20 to 3 hours, I guess. I don't know how long sex lasts for some people. It just seems a little bit of a really heavy-handed and extreme to look forward to these things because you can't have sex with a woman or you can't find a woman to be with. Because the thing that's really interesting to me is the fact that, I mean, as human beings, we all want to have sex. You know, we need to have sex in order to keep making people, you know, but it's such a difficult thing, relatively speaking, in order to obtain. Now, the reason why I say relatively is because if you really think about it, if you're not totally devoid of social skills, it's really not. In fact, there are lots of women who are pretty slutty and whorish that you can find and, you know, do it with. But for the most part, for people who aren't into that type of shit, then yeah, it is pretty difficult to find meaningful relationships. But see, if that's the thing, you know, if you're looking for meaningful relationships, then these sex robots will not fulfill that in any capacity, actually, apart from the the sexual pleasure, unless you try to create a robot that is so highly intelligent that they can, you know, replicate having an actual relationship with the person, which I'm not even sure you could, but let's just say you did. Excuse me. Well, then you've created a woman, sure, I guess, a mechanical woman, but you can't really do probably the most important aspect of dating a woman to begin with, and that is reproduction. I mean, that's why men and women come together. If you really think about it, which, I mean, it sounds callous, but it's actually very important. It's necessary. There's actually nothing callous about it, but it sounds callous. The only real reason why a man, well, I mean, there's lots of reasons why a woman would want to be with a man, but the reason why a man would want to be with a woman is just to make people. I mean, because, like, you don't really need women for much of anything, and that sounds rough, it sounds harsh, but like really think about it. Like, what exactly do you need a woman for? For companionship? You can have friends, you know. You can have lots of friends, honestly, or you can have very few close friends. But what exactly does the woman bring that another male friend would not bring? You know, it's your desire to have sex with that woman that makes it different, you know, from your relationship with men. It's the love that you have for a woman as an end that makes it different. But, I mean, as far as what a woman can actually do, apart from having sex with you and reproducing, you don't really need a woman at all. You know, so to try to create a woman or a pseudo-woman in order to replace the woman you don't need to begin with seems, like I said, a little heavy-handed to me. It just seems a little too much. Now, if you want to have a family, then again, it is totally, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a particular word I was looking for. It's not defeat the purpose, but I mean, you know, it's totally non-conducive to your plan if you invest in one of these sex robots. The whole point of sex is to reproduce, and the reason why you get with a woman or you marry a woman is so you can, you know, create a family. If you can't create a family, well, then, I mean, you've replaced the woman with an object that doesn't even replace the purpose of why you wanted the woman to begin with. It just seems like just really, like, they go way too much. There's lots of words I'm looking for that I can't find at the top of my head, but I guess what I'm basically trying to say is, if you want a sex robot because you want to have sex, but the whole point of being with a woman is to make people, but you don't want to make people, then I guess, I mean, you can have sex, it makes you feel good, but there's no real reason to look forward to these sex robots, because you can just masturbate, or you can just get a bunch of other sex dolls, or you can get a whole bunch of other shit. Like, the thing, see, okay, so getting off to the complete lack of purpose that a sex doll has apart from the pleasure, which you can obtain from anywhere else. There's another thing that kind of gets me about sex robots. And that is, let me collect my thoughts. Okay, I got it. So the thing about a sex robot is it has to be fundamentally different from a sex doll, right? There's got to be more to it than simply just having sex with it, right? Like, it has to, I mean, I guess, replicate or feel similar to a woman or a man, you know, in case you're one of those lonely ladies who just can't use a vibrator. But I guess the thing that kind of gets me about it is that if you go through that much effort in order to try to replace a woman, why not just go through the effort of just trying to get the woman? You know, that's what's really strange to me. Like if you're gonna, you know, spend $6,000, $7,000, or $10,000, however much money that, you know, this thing would cost, well, why not actually just spend all that time you would have been using, you know, working overtime to get that kind of money, and just put it in yourself and just become a better man, and then just go out and find a woman. Now, I would imagine that the point is you don't want to deal with the bullshit that is dealing with a woman, because women kind of suck sometimes, and this is true. There's no real way around it. Some women suck, you know, because they're people, and people suck sometimes, you know. But I still find it that I just don't think that the effort of trying to afford or even trying to create a sex robot is greater than the effort of trying to be with a woman. I think it's much more reasonable and takes less effort to just find a woman to be with and just work in a relationship with her than it is to create a functioning robot that will replace said woman. That is interesting to me, that someone would rather just fucking create a whole woman than try to find a woman that is reasonable, or accepting the fact that you won't find a woman that's reasonable and just being content with yourself. So yeah, there's that. It's just kind of the idea that some people want to replace women with these robots, which even then kind of goes off to another point that's interesting to me, because it still should, like, here's the thing. If you're trying to use these robots to replace your desire for women, it means that you still want to be with a woman. So why wait, years in production for this robot that looks creepy as all goddamn hell, when you could just, work on yourself, work out, eat right, read interesting things, be an interesting person, and then just go out and go talk to a woman, I mean, you can do that. And I mean, it's difficult, because a lot of women are up their own asses. This much is true, but again, like, creating a surrogate to replace the thing, you think that's, like to me, it just doesn't sound like creating an artificial machine to replace the woman is more reasonable than just finding the woman that you want. If you just want a woman, then just go find the woman. I mean, shit. It just seems a little too much to me. I think another thing that kind of gets me, though, about sex robots, which I think is peculiar, is the fear that it inspires in women. So I guess the first half I was kind of talking about how I just don't think it's worth it for men to invest in them, but I find it interesting that there are some women who are afraid of sex robots. They think that they can be replaced by them. That's kind of silly to me, because I mean, like, unless these robots, can start producing egg cells, there's no real way that they can replace women. And even let's just say on the offhand that sex robots become wide sale, a bunch of men just fucking forget about women and just, yeah. Well, I mean, it'll be tough, but as a woman, there's still going to be some guy that's going to be trying to have sex with you because you're a woman. And in order to make people, actually, the interesting thing is, I mean, the thing that would be interesting about, being afraid of being replaced as, like, by a fucking robot is, it shows a gigantic insecurity as a woman. Like, it shows a massive level of self-awareness that you offer nothing to a relationship if you think that a man would rather be with a fucking robot than you. Like, if you're honestly that afraid of being replaced by a robot, it means you offer nothing to him. And, well, honestly, that's a personal weakness that you have to work on. Like I've read some articles about some women being upset or afraid that this thing would happen, that it's shameful and shit. But it's like, listen, lady, if you don't want to be replaced by a robot, that means you have to be an interesting person. And you want to know something? You don't really have to try very hard. Like, it's not really a hard thing to be more interesting than a fucking robot that can't really think for itself. I mean, if that means you just have to be a nice, kind person that's not very selfish, then that means you just have to be a nice, kind person that's not really selfish. I mean, it doesn't mean you never focus on yourself, you never do anything for yourself, but, I mean, it just means you have to be someone worth being with, like, as a woman. Like, if that's what you have to do, you actually have to try. And I think maybe this kind of speaks to a bigger problem with women in general, is this because they don't have to try. They don't have the skills, like, they don't really know, like, a lot of women probably don't know outside of trying to look pretty what they would do in order to, like, get a man. Like, because their whole lives they've probably more been approached than they have been. And I think a lot of women that aren't very attractive, they probably, if they don't learn how to compensate, even they're probably lost too, because it's like, well, how would you date him? Like, I actually think that's pretty interesting. Like, I've never even asked the question because I'm not gay, but I mean, like how, as a one, like, how would you try to date? How would you try to get a guy to like you? And as women, they usually do nothing. It's so. I mean, I can understand. I can actually the fear of sex robots for insecure women that don't offer anything in relationships, I can understand. I still think that it's unreasonable, considering that all you really have to do is just try. If you just try, then there's no reason to be afraid. But even then, I think, I guess to wrap it up, I don't think sex robots are an optimal solution to the problem that some of these men are having, and that is that they're lonely and they can't find people to be with. I think the best solution, instead of spending thousands of dollars on this machine that can make you feel good but can't ever really replace the fact that you're actually lonely, you actually want a woman, is to just find the woman. And if you're a woman and you're afraid that you're going to be replaced, I think the optimal solution is to not try to make these guys feel like they're disgusting for one of these robots. It's become an interesting person, become an interesting and available person, that's another thing, so that these men will want to be with you rather than being with a goddamn robot. It seems like the interesting thing, when it all comes down to it, a lot of people, I say a lot, maybe it's not a lot, but I mean, you know, there's some people at the very least, you know, they look forward to the invention of sex robots, but I don't think it's any solution for any lonely man, and I don't think any woman should really be afraid of them if they just have a personality and are just fun to be around. So there's that. I guess the last thing I can kind of speak upon, no, I'll just save it for another video. So that's my thoughts for now on the topic. There's probably more things I could say, but I don't want to be here all day. So with that being said, man, I just hope you guys enjoyed today's video. And if you did, man, go ahead. Click the like button. As you go and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. And I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.